Well, Marcus, welcome. Just to give you a quick bio introduction, Marcus is currently an enterprise architect at ReliaQuest, renowned in the cybersecurity industry, and has spent more than 20 years career working in pen testing, incident response, and digital forensics with federal agencies such as NSA, DC3, DIA, and DARPA. He started his career in cryptography in the U.S. Navy. Oh, man, I love that. Fellow mathematician. That's awesome. And holds a master's degree in network security from Capital College. Marcus was previously, the founder and CEO of ThreatCare, acquired by ReliaQuest, a venture-based cybersecurity and software services company based in Austin, Texas. He regularly speaks at cybersecurity conferences across the country, and he's very passionate about giving back to the community through things like mentorship, hackathons, and speaking in engagements. And Marcus is a voracious reader in his spare time. So welcome, Marcus Carey, to Wild West Hackin Fest, and we are going to kick it off. I'll get off the screen for your closing keynote, and thank you, sir.
I can't see myself, so if I'm making weird faces or something, forgive me. If I have anything on my face, forgive me.
Okay, you're not making weird faces. I do see your slides, and so I think you're all set to go, sir.
All right, fantastic. All right, so basically, okay, cool. Now I see myself. Funny enough. All right, so, and as you see, the first slide, and you probably heard this saying a lot of times. Let me make sure I can. All right, cool. All right, we're on the road. We're rolling now. All right, so basically the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think that's super what we do in cybersecurity all the time. We've been doing the same thing over and over, and it just doesn't work. Funny enough, another thing is what we do is we attribute quotes to the wrong people all the time in life in general. So basically it was a book called Sudden Death by Jim Fulton, but that term has been attributed to Albert Einstein, all kind of different people. But basically, this is like the life that we live in cybersecurity. So I'm basically never presenting PowerPoint, and I never use GoToWebinar. So it's going to take me a little bit to get warmed up. All right, so believe nothing you hear and only half of what you see is another popular term, a popular saying that we always hear. And this is actually what I kind of live my life by. And I've heard this attributed to Benjamin Franklin. But again, nobody knows who said this saying. But what I first heard that saying was from Marvin Gaye, pound for pound, the best singer that ever lived. But the presentation is going to be on the definition of insanity, and I'm going to be talking about the present and the future of cybersecurity, essentially. So let's talk about the present. The present has been this way forever. Basically, we're living in a super reactive world, and that hasn't changed. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to change at all. People have been breaching security forever. People built walls, people jumped over the walls, or dug holes under them. People want to build walls forever. Walls don't work. But the thing that's funny about that is we'll continue to build these things that just don't work. And the Romans, for me, way back in the day, it didn't work then. The stuff don't work now. We're still doing these silly things. All right, so let's talk about Antivirus. Let's talk about the past, and then we talk about the present, and we're talking about the future. So with AV, what's funny about AV is that it never really gave you consistent results. That was the past, and now that what we see in security is at the time. The funny thing about Antivirus is McAfee, and McAfee is nuts, but he was a pioneer in cybersecurity, so that proves what basically Bryson's presentation on anybody can be an entrepreneur. Well, look no further than John McAfee. Anybody can be an entrepreneur and make a lot of money. So, but even we knew that if you didn't update the signatures there was so much malware out of there. There was an estimation from an Australian security group that said that we only knew 20% of the malware that was out there. So just imagine what that number is now. We probably know 1 or 2% of the malware is out there. So antivirus is something that people really don't talk about. Everybody's talking about endpoint protection, but I think that where we're going to is definitely going to be, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and all this stuff. And I hate to tell y'all, but artificial intelligence does not exist. And it just doesn't exist. All right, so the best way to test this stuff is like Eicar files and all that. This still works today. So Eicar files work on next generation stuff, EPP and things. So as you may know, ThreatCare was a company. They did something similar to what Bryson's site does. We did attack simulations, and I got acquired. My company got acquired back in October by ReliaQuest. Firewalls. So firewalls were actually the first commercial cybersecurity product, and Checkpoint actually introduced this to the market. Now, by default, and people don't, a simple firewall, and everybody has a simple firewall in their house now. So in the past, and I actually have a really good friend, was a mentor of mine a long time ago. Marcus Raynham worked with the government and they basically built firewalls. So big picture is firewalls, a lot of traffic pretty much out, but they prevent traffic from coming back in. One of the things that I'm gonna prevent initiating communications on the inside. Firewalls haven't changed to this day that much. That's a basic firewall. Now there's next generation firewalls and all these other different things, but the truth is they're pretty much all the same. They operate on those same kind of principles. And we're going to consistently see this. We see it, everybody in their house, they have a simple firewall on their internet router or Wi-Fi or whatnot. NMap is something that we saw in the past. So NMap was pretty cool because that was the first way that started enumerating networks. I remember back in the day when I first used NMap, I found out that I was running all kind of stuff in my house. This is a tool that we used in the past, and you definitely want to still use it. You want to use it in the present and in the future. Now, one of the things that I like to do, and I know many of the people that are on watching this are advocates of red teaming and attack simulation and all that stuff. I'm still a big proponent of running these tools on your network. For one, can you detect it? Because the thing is, the attackers use the same tools we use. So keep on running these tools. This tool definitely, like I said, the first time I ran this, I had a UPS power supply. I knew it was network, but I didn't know it had a web interface. I was SSH telnet to it or whatever. But basically, the more you need to understand, if I run these tools, how's it going to look on my network? File integrity builder. This actually is something that actually is gaining new life. And the reason why, and I'll tell you, the life cycle of this stuff is so funny to me. So basically, Tripwire was kind of the first thing people used to monitor files. Well, now, since ransomware is so rampant, people are kind of reverting back to that and doing file integrity monitoring to give an early warning and indications that they've been ransomware. So what's funny is that this, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit. What's old and what's kind of cool is now new. So what people are doing now is they're doing file integrity monitoring, and you can actually write a script to do this. Some tools, some endpoint protection are putting canary files or honey tokens or whatnot, honey type files on systems to do early detection. So funny enough, Tripwire, many people thought Tripwire probably played out, but and that kind of technology played out, but that's something that's current, and with the way ransomware is going, is something in the future. And I'll talk more about ransomware here in a second. Intrusion detection. Funny enough, I think there's been two phases of cybersecurity. I think that at the beginning of cybersecurity, there was network stuff. So the network, excuse me. So there's been a current back and forth. The first tool we said was a firewall. They came out, right? And then people were doing all this network stuff, right? And then they started doing endpoint stuff, which was the antivirus, the file integrity monitor. And then what happened is people moved back to the network, trying to do intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, and all kind of different stuff, next generation firewalls and all that stuff. So that actually was going on for a while. And we were doing vulnerability scanning from a remote network perspective. And what's funny about that is that people were everything was remote and network based, right? Even tools like Metasploit came out, and Metasploit typically was trying to do remote exploitation. But things changed over time. Even when I first wrote the attack simulation software I was focused on testing network-based tools because all the network tools, Palo Alto networks came out. But currently, everything has switched back, and people are more concerned with the endpoints now. And even we're talking about mobile stuff now again. It's kind of crazy how this goes back and forth and all that stuff. So again, what's old is new. And so basically the number one thing that people are worried about right now is ransomware. And the reason why I like ransomware from a just pure theory perspective, because we've been talking about confidentiality, integrity, and availability forever. And most of the stuff that people really focused on was confidentiality, because they wanted people not to see credit cards, or in the military we had top secret stuff and all that stuff. We didn't want nobody to see that. But the integrity piece mattered a little bit, and we talked about it, but it never was at the forefront, to be honest with you. And also availability. Yeah, you got DDoS, and there was DDoSes and all that stuff. But to me, DDoS is more of an IT problem. But when it came to data security and information security, ransomware is the first thing that affected all three of those triads. The confidentiality is breached because they get access to the system. So if they have access to the system in the military, we assume that everything's compromised. That's how it was in the military. And so that's the confidentiality piece. The integrity piece, basically, since they've encrypted the files down, you lost integrity of everything that you have because you can't access it. You also have a problem with the accessibility, availability of it as well. So ransomware is the perfect trifactor of affecting all things related to the CIA triad. And it's the only thing like that. And now what's funny about it is people initially, they were just doing the ransom, but now a lot of the actors are actually, if you don't pay the ransom, well, they're leaking it now, right? So what they lock you up, you can't use nothing, and they're gonna drop the confidentiality bomb by leaking documents as well. So what has that done? Now we back to the endpoint. So we was at AV, then we was doing all this network stuff. Now we're doing endpoint again. So endpoint is funny because when I think of endpoint, that means that they already bypassed everything else. This is almost like an emergency situation. Like, dang, everything else, dang, like, use the endpoint, right? But I think endpoint is on the forefront of things. But essentially, what it is, endpoint is nothing but a burglar alarm, right? So, and again, people talking about AI all day. There was like several companies talking about AI. AI does not exist. Machine learning is cool and can be trained to recognize certain patterns, but AI is a bunch of. Anytime I see AI, I'm totally not even listening no more. So if y'all create a company that's like a security company, oh, we do AI, people laugh. It's a laughing stock. So, but what we see, what's really nice though, that I really like, that we're doing a lot of, is people are talking about this Mitre attack piece right here. I know that people are beating this thing to death, but I think it deserves. I like to talk about it in a different way. I think it's the first time that blue team and red team have actually had a common language to use, right? And that's perfect. That's good, because so many times in the past, like even with the antivirus vendors and all those guys, they come up with their own language, their own terminology. They're trying to patent and trademark everything. And where Mitre stepped in is Mitre is like, okay, cool. Here's a common framework that we can all talk about. Now that's why you're seeing all the security companies are coming in lockstep, and like they're incorporating Mitre because it's a framework that we can all do. And I'm not talking about the red. I'm not talking about pure red team. I'm talking about the blue team as well. And also, when you see it's saying attack, it allows you to explain in a coherent way how you were breached. So I'm not just talking about blue team, red team. I'm talking about reporters, analysts, like whoever people that don't know anything about cybersecurity. But now look at Mitre and like, okay, cool. This is how that works. It's like literally like a dictionary for how cybersecurity works. And I think it's going to keep on getting better and better. But when people think about attack simulation, the main thing that they talk about is when people talk about the attack framework, the main thing they're talking about is attack simulation. And it's been super, super nice for doing that. So basically now you have the Mitre attack framework, and now you can actually categorize the attacks and test against the attacks. And also you can look on the other side and it's like, look at the defensive things. And there's never been nothing like that before. So I really like the way it can be used in that manner. Next thing we'll talk about here is that this is where we're at. We're actually living off the land more. And this is why I love PowerShell so much. PowerShell is dope. And there's been a lot of talk about it for a lot of years now. I recently, over the last couple of years, I actually started programming a lot into it. I've built some agents in it, and recently what I built, me and my team, we built some ransomware just using PowerShell, which is dope. And here's kind of like some of the code. And so that's actually some of the main operating code of building ransomware in PowerShell. And that's dope. And because like back in the day, you would have to use binaries and all that stuff. Now you can write everything in PowerShell, and I love it because like it's the native language, and it's more powerful than it's as powerful as anything, plus the native aspects of it. Now we're going to talk about future. So this is kind of an inside joke. So this is a rapper, and the rapper's name is Future. So some of y'all probably already knew that. So what we can expect in the future is we can expect more living off the land. Unfortunately, so this is actually, when I'm talking about PowerShell and talking about these things, what I'm going to expect, I'm going to expect more people, the security industry, is going to keep on writing tools, offensive and defensive. And it's kind of controversial because funny thing is, attackers are using a lot of the stuff that we write coming from the blue team side of the house. People are using a lot of stuff that we write. And at the same time, I've written tools that I know law enforcement uses it sometimes. And I know because I had agents and stuff when I do a talk. I had FBI agents come up to me. I had Italian intelligence and stuff, like all kind of people coming to me after I do a talk, after I write a tool. So we just gotta, try to use some kind of discretion, but every tool, to me personally, can be used for offense and defense. It's like a knife. You can use a knife to cut food, or you can use a knife to OJ somebody. So being proactive is what I think that we're starting to do more in the future. there's a lot of tools coming out, products like Brian's product, like the stuff that I'm still working on, and there's plenty of really smart people are working in this space on being proactive and being able to get to a point where we're doing continuous testing on the network. So basically, back in the day, people just put stuff on the network and they never tested it. That's why I started my company back in the day, as a way to automate that testing. And so you didn't have to be John Strand or one of these other, really popular pen testers. You didn't have to have that skill set to be able to test. So now what's kind of crazy is that the next level of this is the browsers now. And that's Internet Explorer, but Edge is out there now. And the new OS is the browser. So everything's going to the browser. And so what that does is many of the things that we were using in the past are all kind of antiquated, because how these browsers are working, and I'm talking about WebSockets in a little bit, the browser is sending mad communications and sending mad data out the back door, and we don't even know it. Hopefully I have a slide about crypto, but cryptography-wise, what we're doing is we're encrypting everything that goes out of the network too. So we're in this very interesting position where I don't know if we're going to be able to necessarily defend networks the way we have been. So I think that it's kind of hard for privacy and security to actually work together. They're not the same. So sometimes I personally, funny enough, I don't think that there's any such thing as privacy. I think everyone's privacy is totally compromised. And I really don't know how I feel like that. I don't know how I feel about it. But I know one thing, the browsers right now, you're going to be able to encrypt everything. All your DNS requests is going over. You can't read it. And all this WebSocket activity is going on, and nobody can see it. So it's very interesting. So I built agents recently where my main command and control is all WebSockets, and it works great. So basically, we wrote some bots, and you can write them anything. I've written bots in Python, WebSocket bots in Python, and I've written a WebSocket bots in Golang. Golang is what I'm working with right now. But all of those can interact with the browser, and I can control like mad stuff, and it's instantaneous. That's what's beautiful about WebSockets. I think people are going to see cyber ranges. So this is you're going to continue to see this. This is where everybody's going to. There's companies dedicated to providing cyber ranges, and this is a gun range. So essentially, cyber ranges is the same concept. You can fire off tools and play red team versus blue team and all that stuff. But personally, I like the way that things that work from an attack simulation perspective. There's this whole thing called breach and attack simulation. I like it because you can do this thing. You can do these things on live networks. Where I think that you can learn from having these cyber ranges. The problem with it though that I see is that I've been around organizations that they send people to SANS training and all that stuff. And I'm not thinking, I love SANS. I love some of the people at SANS for sure. But the problem is when the people come back to their job, they don't have the same tool set. So I encourage people to do testing on their real live networks than doing it in cyber ranges and all that stuff, right? So basically, this is and people are still going to be fishing out there. This is my fishing slide. This is 9 times out of 10. That's how it seems like that's how everybody's getting on. They're getting on with fishing, and then they get hit with the ransomware. One of my friends a long time ago said that whatever your adversary does, it shouldn't, whatever technique that they dream of, and if there's a new technique, it shouldn't wholly change your cybersecurity posture. So I'm a proponent that I believe that we know enough to defend most attacks. We just don't do it. Now, what's interesting is that I think that we're having a convergence, and the convergence is, and I mentioned before how the browser is the new OS. So you're going to have these web extensions here, and some of these web, by default, of course, anybody can write a web extension for anything. Even a dumb country boy, the backwoods of Texas like myself, I've written some browser extensions. They're quite interesting. Funny enough, also back in the day, I wrote something for Metasploit. That was a JavaScript keylogger too. So that JavaScript keylogger is something I came up with in Metasploit. Funny enough, when you look at Grammarly, a lot of people complain about Grammarly sending data off as well. So some of these tools are essentially like almost like malware in the browser, and there's nothing preventing me from creating a tool right now, uploading it as a screensaver or something. But then I'm also, there's a property and when you build the JSON manifest, the manifest for building these things, because I've been playing around with this as well, is you can say listen to all websites. So just because you say that says Zoom, the Zoom, if they want to, they can listen to anything that you do on any browsing application, and that's how Grammarly works. So be careful about some of these these plugins. And there is actually a manifest 3 that's supposed to be coming out. It was announced back in like November of last year, but there hasn't been any more movement on that. So basically, me or you, we can upload anything we want to into the store, and I could just advertise it to do something else, and I could be and man, that makes me want to do that actually. I might write a plugin, just thinking about it. I just might have a plugin to steal your passwords every site you go to. So just to demo it. But that's something that somebody could do. Easy money. All right, let's talk about WebSockets a little bit. WebSockets are awesome. WebSockets are easy because you can create a WebSocket client and server with just a few lines of code. And I've been playing around in writing some Golang servers and Golang agents and compiling it and to do all kind of cool stuff like that. You can, anything in a web browser is easy to do JavaScript WebSocket related work. What's cool about WebSockets is, remember I said firewalls traditionally, as many of us know, firewalls traditionally are trying to come in. Long as I get a WebSocket connection on there, I can do an infinite amount of things. And the WebSocket is just listening, and I don't have to, it's just pretty much bypassing a lot of security in some cases. So WebSockets is where it's at. If you're writing tools, I highly encourage you to do the WebSockets. Another interesting thing about WebSockets is since they're so new, a lot of people don't know how to test them from a web app perspective. So this is an emerging field. If you want to get in something hot, in my opinion, I would get into trying to test out WebSocket applications, because I've heard about some stuff. I haven't been doing a lot of web app stuff recently, but there may be a couple of plugins on a couple of different web app tools. But the thing about this is anybody can write their own kind of like with the way WebSockets work. It's not like HTTP GET and post and all that. This is like I can write over WebSockets is a completely raw protocol. You can do anything you want to. You can make your own GET. You can make all those different kind of requests. And there's not no tool, because it's so customizable now. There's not one tool that's going to work for all WebSocket stuff. You can do encryption. You can send raw files. You can do WebSockets is wide open. It's nuts. Mobile security. Mobile security is having a comeback in America because because of TikTok and all those different things, which is kind of hilarious because I remember like 5-6 years ago, everybody was talking about the same thing. And this is what's funny about the startup world, right? There's ebbs and flows of startups. If you see something get hot, there'll be a whole bunch of people talking about it. Like AI was hot. So everybody, if you went to RSA, everybody had an AI tool. We do this in AI. All the vendors like AI. You know, that sounds like a dang Nelly song, underlay, AI. But mobile security was something that's super hot. When I was with Rapid7, we bought a company called MobiliSafe, and I don't think their product ever saw the day of light after Rapid7 bought them. So, but there was a lot. Everybody was jumping into the mobile security game. But I think, and so what you're going to see now is this will happen, ebbs and flows. Like, what's the next frontier? I think Mitre all the things. I think attack simulation is hot. I think mobile security is going to make a comeback because of some of the recent executive orders affecting like Chinese type companies. But it's just going to be interesting. I think that's going to be hot. And one more thing that I want to talk about is creativity. So I think that a lot of times we're doing stuff over and over again, and we're not using any creativity on how we can solve these problems. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a quick demo of something I wrote all in the browser and using JavaScript. So hopefully I can show you this. So can I get one of my moderator friends to tell me if they can see this browser up? I don't want to be talking and not seeing it.
Yep, I can see it.
We see it. We got you.
Yeah, all right, fantastic. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to find out innovative ways so I can use the browser, because now I can program anything into the browser, right? And so what I did with this application, this is a static application hosted on S3. So one of my marketing people was like, hey, how can we do this, interactive thing and all that stuff? Typically you would set up a cyber range, you set up all this other stuff. But I was like, look, I think I could make like a escape room, but I'm gonna do it all in code. So this is what I wrote. It's not a surprise to me, because some people don't think I get busy behind the keyboard. I'm gonna click start on this. And how much time do I have left? I haven't saw my Australian homie come up here with putting no fingers up on me. We good on time?
Hey Marcus, you got about 15 minutes left.
All right, cool. So this is gonna take about 5 minutes, and then we can do maybe a little bit of questions. Okay. All right. So I'm looking at the screen. So I'm gonna start this. So basically, what I did is I built some scope into this, and the point of this is you're trying to be a red teamer, and at the end there's blue teams and stuff to get people to understand. So this is kind of like a beginner, but it's challenging enough that it would be fun for anybody to play. This is how I built it. And so basically, the challenge here is to get past, and y'all can all go to intrusionroom.com to play around with it. I know some of y'all are going to be looking at the JavaScript, but don't try to cheat. I did obfuscate some of the code, but basically you can go through here, because I'm looking at the warm keys on there, or the darker keys on there, right? Now I need to disable alarm. So what I can do is I can go to Google, and it's like, all right, what is this default combo? And I'm not gonna say it out loud, but if, like I said, you maybe test your team out. This is something pretty cool to play. I just wanted people to like, how does like red team, how does kind of like a John Strand type think? All right, there's a couple of laptops in the conference room.
So Marcus, about that John Strand thing, are you telling me PowerPoint's involved?
No. So here what you see is like we have a room, but what's cool is there's a Wi-Fi password on there, right? And so what's cool about this is I think that we need to be creative and like offer different kind of training. And you're going to see this red team aspect, but then you're also going to see a blue team aspect at the end, which is dope. All right, so basically I'm going to enter the Wi-Fi password here. And it's going to open up an email for me. And with this email, what I'm going to do, it says there's a proxy card. We all seen proxy cards discarded and all this stuff around an office. So I'm going to continue. So what's cool about this? You got 5 minutes to play. Like I said, maybe try it with a friend, maybe try it with your family, maybe get your kid to try it out. You must be Whopper to get into the CEO's office. And I styled this based off of Whopper for real. So let's see if I can beat it. All right, so I'll be Whopper. So the reason why I put that in there, because there's always some pain in the butt thing, and you could get, sometimes it takes you a while to beat the tic-tac-toe. There's always some random thing that pops up that you need to accomplish to get to your goal. So now I'm gonna use the proximity card to get into the elevator. Now I need to put in a bad password for the CEO. I'm not going to tell you the password. Like I said, y'all can play it. And it's this file that pops up called combo.pdf. There's some numbers on here. And there's a hint here, right here. But I can get into this safe. So the previous screen gave me a hint. So I know what the combo is. I'm not going to waste any time. So that was the version 1 of this. A couple of different challenges, and what the insight on that is, like, what you can do is you can help people out, and like, why shouldn't I write my password down? Why shouldn't we do this? And so this is the kind of things that you don't have to build a whole cyber range to help somebody learn. And also, what I like about this is that I built this in. I built some logs in, and these are fake logs generated by the JavaScript, and these are accurate as far as time that I went through them. And now we can say, Wi-Fi. Like if nobody's ever did anything related to cybersecurity, we need to actually we need to break it down and make it easier for them to understand, so they can walk into things. Now I know I've talked to John about how do we do training better and not have to spend a whole bunch of money, right? And so with easy tools like this, you can go to a nice web interface and do it. That's how we're going to make people. We need more people to be beasts and understand how this works. And there's a lot of opportunity here to make this way more complex. If you keep on coming back to this over time, I'm going to make this super complicated. We're going to be doing all kind of stuff in here, mimicking all different kind of software and all that stuff. But this is version 1 of this. But the point that I want to I'm trying to make here, and hopefully y'all digging it, is that we just gotta get better at explaining the technology and to make it easy for other people to learn. So that's it for what I'm going to be presenting. And I would definitely welcome some questions from anybody.
Dude, fantastic. And there's a little bit of lag on the Discord channel, so I fill that with me talking and doing hand things. One of the things that you and I were talking about a couple of months ago, kind of, the whole reason why this is so important is we need to have a way for people to get involved and get into security, and without it being like, this gate, this super expensive gate, and how to make this accessible. Because like the things that you just went over, like the Wi-Fi password, like combos to break into a building, that's not like, doing ROP chains, but that's probably more important for securing organizations than the like crazy deep technical stuff, right?
Yeah, for instance, and the reason why that was so easy, password reuse, still rampant. people using default passwords, keypads worn out. I'm sure you can go into some place, you're like, oh, I know I have 24 opportunities to get this right within 2 minutes. Like, you could just do it. So if we eliminate the low hanging fruit, then we're gonna improve ourselves so much further. So that's what I'm talking about. You don't have to be some super guru writing all kind of crazy code like I sometimes do to make an impact.
Like those days where you drop, or those weeks where you drop off Twitter for an extended long time, rage coding. So on that note too, I think that this ties in with one of the themes that we've seen in this entire conference is the concept of imposter syndrome. And that last phrase that you said, I think is important for anybody that feels like they're dealing with imposter syndrome. We don't need more wizards impressing wizards. We need more people with the basics and the fundamentals, and get those things down. And over time, you're going to become a wizard, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm you know what book I'm into right now? I'm gonna just share. I always like to share some books. The book is Can't Hurt Me. Have you read that book yet?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Can't Hurt Me. Anybody listening, go pick that book up right now, because the guy that wrote that book has incredible odds. And no matter what your background is, and that's why I try to encourage people, no matter what your background is, there's actually space for you, because you can overcome any kind of limitations. Maybe you can't code, maybe you can't do this, it doesn't matter. But everybody definitely has something to bring. Even if your background is in marketing or something like that, we need good marketers too. They can communicate and do all that stuff. So we need everybody. We need people that can write really well, because I ain't doing the writing.
And I think this gets a bit weird, but I think a lot of times we put ourselves in our own cages, right? There's always adversity. I mean, you're going to have that. Some people, without question, have more adversity than others. But it's amazing how many times people, as soon as they confront adversity, they shut down completely. And that book, I just brought it up real quick. This is by David Goggins, which I think is the book you're talking about. I hope I got that right. And then the other one, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. He talks about this guy that is an absolute certified genius, and he's washing cars, because anytime he gets into any confrontation or any type of obstacle, he just shuts down. It's just like the world is against him. We've got to constantly push through that.
100%. And that book that I mentioned, it gives you tools in that book that you can actually overcome those things. Everybody has something that everybody has their kryptonite, should I say, right? And so, but how do you overcome those challenges when you get there? And that's going to be required to have a successful career, to start a cybersecurity company, to do whatever you want to do. There's going to be challenges, and so what I'm here for, and what I see you doing a lot, where I'm really proud of you, is that we got to pull people up and make them. We gotta give them the tools that they need to win.
Yeah, and my favorite story about that is one of the people that is like a big brother to me, Ed Scotus, where he came out and he was doing all this Windows command line kung fu stuff for years. I mean, he's kind of the grandfather of like offensive Windows command line kung fu. And the sole reason why he did that is he knew that was his kryptonite. And he spent months on airplanes trying to make it not his kryptonite. Like, find that area you're weak, attack it relentlessly, and then make it your strength. And that's ultimately how you get better.
That's it, man. Like, when I first got into cybersecurity, I did a lot of scripting and stuff, but I wasn't a developer at all. And actually learning how to develop and build software, that actually changed my life. Like, because now I can write tools and all that stuff, but it's something that I shied away from years. And the reality is, the more like people that we need. We need more people that can code. And the reason why is because you can automate mundane tasks, and because it's too much to do. It's too much boring stuff to do.
Yeah.
Automate everything. Automate all the boring stuff. And then use your mind where you really need to use it. don't you, if you, that's why people get burnt out, because they're doing the same garbage stuff all the time. Just
Yeah.
automate it if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's the one gate that I would encourage everybody that's getting into security, that they do need to pass through that gate, because you do need to know some type of coding. I don't care if it's bash scripting, if it's Python, if it's Golang, if it's C, C++. You have to be able to think and at least express yourself in code. And it's far beyond just saying, well, I can read code. You do need to know how to code, I think, at some point in this level, to like in this career path, in the technical path. There's management paths, like you said, there's people that's doing sales, and that's great. But if you're going to be in the technical space, whether it's red or it's blue, that gate for you is going to be code, and you have to learn code to be effective, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
There's a lot of truth to that statement.
So, but yeah, so basically, man, that's it, man. That changed. I knew like internet networking super well, cryptography I knew pretty well, but I couldn't code. But now, you know what? Flip the switch for me, kind of like a similar to what you said, Ed. And shout out to Ed. That's my dude. When we used to come to Austin, we used to hang out and we used to eat raw fish, but I don't know if he can eat raw fish anymore. But
No, not anymore.
some of his last sushi outings were with me. but yeah, so basically my thing was, I said, well, how am I going to learn how to really develop? And how I did it is I was like, I'm not going to write a command line tool. Every tool I have to do, every tool I'm going to write it has to have a web interface. And then I started writing mad web tools, and you've seen some of the tools I've built over the years. And I was like, it has to have a web interface. I'm not building a command line tool. Because command line tools, again, sometimes they're hard. They're hard. You got to learn a new set of command line. You crazy?
Well, and a lot of your stuff, like I remember some of the recon websites that I can't remember your recon tool, but I do remember. Yep, and then HoneyDocs. And the thing that I was talking to you about the other day is how many of those things, like the recon website and then the HoneyDocs, you now look and there's companies that are like, getting like $20-30 million basically doing what you did, 10 years ago for free for the community. And
yeah, I'm terrible. I suck.
Cool. Do any of those companies ever come up to you and say, hey man, thank you?
I've had people tell me, yeah, they saw such and such, but hey, it's good, man. Like I tell you what, basically, it's just weird. I mean, like I said, I've had people come up to me 10 years later. Oh yeah, that tool, man, that was amazing, blah blah. And like I said, man, I think you said I just suck as being a capitalist. But you know what's funny? When I was at NSA back in the day, I wrote a sim, man. I wrote a sim at NSA, and it was in Perl. I sucked, and it was all command line. It would. I built something to telnet all the different IDSs. It pulled down the data. It was like very old telnet, right? Pulled down the data, and it worked. And I was like, wow, there's companies out here doing many of the things that old school Marcus did. So I'm 45, man. I haven't seen a lot.
But you also look at like what we had to do back then. If you're going back to like 99, 2000, 2001, all the way up to around 2008, the stuff that we literally had to do just to do our jobs required us to have a firm understanding of the underpinnings of what we were working with. And that's something that I feel bad for a lot of the up and coming security people, because I think with a lot of the tools and products, they're getting so abstracted from what it is that they're actually trying to protect that it's just going to make it more difficult for them to protect it in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. When I was in the Navy, initially, security, we had this thing, we call it ADP, Automated Digital Processing. That's what the Navy called it. And we had security in there. Novell NetWare, Windows Workgroups. It was just old school stuff. But we did security too. So basically what's happened is we've ripped security from having to have technical expertise. And I think that's cool in a sense, right? Because you do need specialists to understand some of the stuff. However, those old school people, they could write dang awk statement that was like 5 lines, and it would pull out some ridiculous thing. I knew people that could read hex on a screen, and they were beasts. Here's the deal: all the people that really knew their stuff shared the information.
Yeah.
Just like you and all that. Like, we still out here sharing information and helping people out. The people that don't know are hoarders, and they try to pretend that it's all magical.
Yeah.
You know, look for the helpers is the term. Like, the people that know their stuff usually share. So that's been my luck.
And a lot of those people that don't, like you said, I think that gets to some level of insecurity. And you know what? I all the people that I know that are really, really, really good at their craft, they're very good at also saying, you know, here's where I screwed up in my career. They're very good at saying, you know what? I don't understand that. They're very comfortable saying, I don't know. And those 3 little words are so hard for many people that are new to get past and be able to say and actually own it.
And I'll tell you, the most important question when I was hiring people at ThreatCare, we asked all the questions, you know, whatever their expertise was. But I would say, what's the biggest mistake you made, and how did you recover from it?
Yeah.
So that was the question. And sometimes if people said, I've never made a mistake, I was like, we're not hiring that. It was like, right? I'm like, what? You know, you never made a mistake?
So at SANS, one of our acid tests that the instructors would put up and coming instructors through is, you know, there's that old adage that a fool can ask more questions than a wise man can answer. And we pushed new instructors to the point where it's like absurdity. There's no way anyone would know it at that level. And we always tried to see if they tried to bullshit us. Like, if they ever tried to get to the point and they tried to lie, or they tried to make up an answer. And we always pushed new instructors to that point. And I'm not going to say what the percentages, but a huge percentage of up-and-coming instructors, brilliant people, as soon as we started pushing them hard, they just started making things up, and they clearly didn't know what they were talking about. And it's weird. We honestly were trying to use that as a filter for the good instructors to come through, because the great ones, they'd be like, look, man, I don't know. Let's open up the man pages. Let's look at the source code. Let's do this together. The really bad ones that you want to avoid were the ones that their ego is so precious to them that they could not let go, that maybe they didn't know something.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I love that test. I had to add a comment into that. It's like I have an interview question that I ask a lot of people, and I told this story to Mike Poore years ago, because that's the 3rd time I've invoked Mike Poore today, by the way. But because I got the idea to ask this question from Mike, and I do blame Mike. And the question that I ask a lot is what is the leftmost bit of the 6th offset of the IP header? And then I go on to say, and John's heard me do this for some of our candidates, you know, what is what RFC references it, in what year and month was the RFC published, and who's the author of the RFC, and for further credit, can you write a TCP dump filter to actually catch packets with this particular bit of the IP header set? And one of the best answers I ever heard, and I'm not afraid to say this out loud on air, was from Carey, who was interviewing with us. And Carey's a wonderful, wonderful web app pen tester, at least was at the time. She's a wonderful person, great asset to the industry. And she quoted I think it was RFC 791. She quoted one of the original, TCP/IP RFCs, and we pretty much were like, yeah, you're hired right now. And because it's the trick question, of course, it's the evil bit, and it was Steve Bellevin that did it in 2000 and 2003, April Fool's Day RFC. But really funny, great question, a lot of fun.
And ultimately, that question, it's not put out there to see if you know the answer, because if you do know the answer, it's an inside joke. We're going to hit you with another question. But if somebody doesn't know the answer, you know that they don't know that answer fairly quickly. And to see how they answer it, like I've actually seen people, I'm not joking, like pull up like the old SANS shirts or pull up the TCP/IP header and try to figure out what that is, because it's a reserved bit. And people are like, well, I don't know what that's supposed to do. And it's okay if you don't know. Once again, I don't know. are the three truest things that you can say in life.
Yeah, and that's what I think the real power to that particular question is for us as the interviewers to hear the person work through the logic of how to get there, not so much to just give an answer, right? It's like, well, okay, yeah, that's over here, and I would do this and that, and to listen to people's thought process. That's what matters. And it goes to what you were saying, John. I was on the other side of the murder board table from you at one point, and I don't even remember how I responded, but I don't know was certainly part of the words. I do remember that.
Well, I'll tell you, like, there's this term, and y'all familiar with zero knowledge proofs.
Yep.
So basically, I can say something. That's what I would do. I would, if definitely from a technical perspective, I would ask them a question, and I know if they know that answer, that they know all this other stuff. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I don't even have to. That's how you should. That's how I interview people. Is if you know this, then you know all this other stuff. Oh, you know that? Okay, you know all that stuff.
And that saves you so much time as an interviewer, right?
Certainly. Hey, I appreciate you. For having me here, John. It's a pleasure. Really big fan of everything y'all doing at Wild West Hackin Fest and Black Hills. Really proud of you, man.
All right, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it, and I want to get you out here for real. We'd love to have you come out in person next year.
For sure. All right, take care, man.